It sounds like the wife wants a divorce from
the
him,
husband
correct?
wants a divorce. So the issue here is that they've been going through their marriage after they have had children.
Correct.
But the wife
That's
has
right.
decided that she has had enough of this guy's incompetent sex game, and she started to implement new rules and boundaries in the relationship. So she started to charge a fee for various services. One of those services is sex. So she said that you are so bad at sex and you are so fat that I can't stand to do it anymore. You need to pay me money every time that you want to be intimate. In addition to that, she also was charging for having conversations, for taking her out to dinner. So any time that he wanted to interact with her in any romantic way as a married couple, she would charge him money. And so the guy got fed up with it, and he petitioned for divorce, which he was granted because the judge said that it was just a cold and unfixable relationship.
I'm curious because I didn't see how long he like put up with that. It didn't.
Yeah,
because it was like once a month. Like she was gonna have sex with him, right? Like it was like she was really super limited on it. Very just like he's better off just like buying a prostitute every time.
I think it was a number of years. I mean, I wouldn't even be able to put up with that type of cold shoulder for more than 1 month, personally.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have no idea really what led up to that. Like you said, I don't know if clearly there's bad. Well, I mean, there could be something wrong with her. Like, what type of mental health issues do you have to be like, you know what, dude, your sex game's so bad, I'm making you pay. Like, as a wife. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Like,
well, there's a few ways to sort of look at it. And the way it handled probably wasn't the best. But, I mean, at the very least, the guy got hit with a bait and switch because even if she was lying the whole time, he thought things were okay. But then all of a sudden, he now needs to pay for it because he's so bad. I've read a lot of stories on Reddit, like these different relationship like subreddits, and there's a lot of cases where this type of thing will happen. And I've seen it from both perspectives. But they will get married, they'll have a happy relationship, but then the wife will decide that she's asexual, which just means that she literally has no interest in sex or any like intimate physical touch whatsoever. And in some cases, they say, I don't want to have sex anymore because I put up with it for long enough. In some cases, they tell the guy, like, just so you know, I'm asexual. I'll still do it as a form of maintenance on whatever set schedule they agree
the relationship,
upon.
Like,
that's essentially what it is. And then as a guy, I mean, if your wife tells you that after however long, you're in a marriage with them, but then they say, yeah, we'll still have sex, but I'm totally not into it, and it's just like a biological function to me just to make you happy. Like, that's not steamy.
No.
What are you supposed to do there?
Yeah, I have no idea. That's a great way to put it, because I don't know what, like you said. I mean, there's plenty of ways to look at it. I can't imagine how that went down in court. Like, that's got to be embarrassing, right? Like, how do you go tell the judge, like, yeah, my wife wants me to pay for sex to her, and I've had enough of it. Like, people always say, like, judges hear it all, whatever, but that's got to be a first for the judge. And again, I don't know. Sex could be looked at completely different in that type of culture. I don't know. I don't know if that's more of, like, a normal thing. I have no idea. That's not a thing in the Americas.
I'm sure that's not normal.
But yeah, I mean, and like you said,
it wouldn't be in the news if that was an everyday
the asexual thing throws me off though, because that's it is part of your innate human, like, to want to have sex. Like, that is part of your brain function is to populate the earth. Yeah. So when people are like, yeah, I'm asexual, I have zero, I'm like, what? Not even like, there's nothing there, like, even like a Hollywood actor that you lust after or something,
right.
Like, that's strange to me. That's concerning. I don't know.
I've heard guys that describe themselves as asexual, again, online. I've never met someone like this in person, but they say that they do jack off still. I mean, there's some sort of desire there, but they just, I guess they just don't feel any sort of connection with people.
Okay.
But then on some level, though, so I've heard like a lot of women aren't interested in sex. And I mean, how many times have you heard in your life that once you get married, sex stops?
Just drops.
You know, it just like it's over because, you know, they got what they want or whatever the spin is on it.
Right.
I've heard that so many times, and I know guys like that they joke around about how they only get to have sex every other Wednesday or something like that. And while it is a joke and it is a cliche thing, that wouldn't be said by anybody that isn't in a situation like that. He might be hyperbolic about it. Maybe it's not as bad as he jokes around, but there's some tension there. He's not getting it as much as he wants.
Right.
And so then you got to look at it like, well, whose fault is that really? And how many guys are so bad in bed that women literally aren't even interested in it?
Like, what does that mean? Like, is she just laying down like a starfish and just 40 seconds later, however long it takes him, it's over?
I think it comes down to how much does the guy focus on just himself versus like her. Like some guys don't care at all if like the girl enjoys it.
Right.
And they think that just by thrusting that it's like that's going to be the best thing in the world. And they just don't even think about how it can be better. And a lot of women probably are stuck in relationships like that because they probably don't choose their relationships based on that. Like a lot of men would place more weight on that. I think women are more likely to overlook not being satisfied there if they're into the person. But she probably put up with it for a while in this story. But she also mentioned that an equal issue is that he's fat as well.
Correct,
and
the
so
overweight part. Yep.
Not only is he bad, and she, you know, she's just like isn't impressed with his performance. She's also not attracted to him, and you know their I guess lust for each other is probably faded. So all these things have come together to she just got fed up with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And you know, some of it too could be like you said, maybe not in this case for these people. But possible, like, I've heard porn addictions doing this to people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it desensitizes your brain so much that you can't get excited at the normal being with your partner. Like, that's not a thing anymore, you know?
The visuals,
So,
because, I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole with that, right? And some people, they just chase, like, a higher and higher, like, I guess, like, high off of the porn. There's also something called the death grip effect, where they just hold it so tight that nothing can compare to it. So a lot of women, like, their guy would literally not be satisfied, and then they have to end up, like, giving the dude, like, a hand job or something. Or, like, I've read a story where a guy has to have porn going on, like,
in the background.
Like, will hold his phone over her head as they do it, so that way he can actually find something stimulating. How humiliating.
Yeah, as the chick, dude, like, that's got to be the most humiliating and self-worthless, like, that you would ever feel, like, am I not enough type of thing, you know what I mean? Like, that's interesting, man.
And women will put up with that for a long time until they just, like,
until they're done with
snap. But people will just not communicate their issues with their partner. They're more likely to go online and post on Reddit, what should I do in this situation? You know, my husband doesn't do anything that I like in bed.
Right.
But it's like, well, tell him that. Like, what do you want done? You know, he's not going to read your mind. If it doesn't come naturally to him, like, you do have to bring it up. And that can be something that a lot of people want to avoid. You know, it's like a taboo subject and it's awkward to bring up. But it's like, if you ever want the problem to be solved, you got to tell him. And then if things don't improve, well, maybe that's on him if he just doesn't care about your satisfaction. And the gender doesn't really matter. It could equally happen with a girl too. But, like, you got to communicate. Otherwise, you can't really blame the person for not knowing what to do.
Yeah, the communication thing is a huge issue. You know, they talk about that, like, in some college classes that I took. There was, like, interpersonal communication that I took, and that topic came up. And I don't know, I didn't go down the road of demons my professor had, because she was very much against men, it appeared. Like, she would rip on men, like, all the time in class. So she's teaching an interpersonal communication class, but she hates men, it seems like. So it doesn't really seem like, you know, what happened in your relationship? Shouldn't you be the expert in, like, this communication stuff? But so she had brought that up, though. She brought up the whole kind of talks behind closed doors with your partner and trying to figure out, you know, not only with sex, but, like, with anything, with money. Like, hey, you know, that $300 you're spending a day on Amazon, we need to have a conversation about that because a roof needs to be over our head type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, that's not personal experience. I'm just saying from other things, but
Well, this is why it's so important to like make sure you're compatible with somebody before you get together with them. There's a lot of different ways that you can find that you're incompatible with somebody after living together. You know, you can date and like be on a honeymoon phase, but if you like wait till marriage, well, you're not going to know if the other person is just bad or they are into something that just disgusts you or they're asexual, you know, and they didn't even realize it because, you know, they've been saving themselves for marriage. But then when they finally do it, they realize they're just not into it at all. You're already married. Like, you're trapped in that situation. Same goes for living with somebody. Like, if you hold off on living with somebody before making that commitment, well, you know, you can like somebody when you go on dates and things like that, but living with somebody is an entirely different thing. I mean, their cleanliness habits, you know, just the way that they are at home in the comfort of their own home is going to be different than how they are when they're trying to put their best foot forward on a date.
Yeah.
And then even as like a parent, like, you know, having a baby ties you with somebody whether you like them or not, and in that way it is more significant than being married, and it's an equal or greater commitment. But if you have a baby with somebody, like, the way that they parent can be completely different. I've heard stories of like people that have completely changed after having a baby, and it ruins the relationship. Like my buddy, he had a baby with a girl, and obviously some kind of postpartum depression that just she never got over completely changed her. She just went crazy basically and ended up homeless. And he has full custody of the kid now. But it's like a switch completely changed in her brain. If he would have been married, it would have been a way worse situation. So you got to make sure that you're compatible on all levels and take those things seriously too. A lot of people will say, okay, well, everything's great except for this one aspect of it, and I'm willing to overlook it because everything else is good. Compromise is good, but, you know, if the sex is bad, are you going to be comfortable with that for the next, you know, 50 years, 60 years?
Till you die.
Yeah, that resentment's going to build up, and that kills marriages. So you got to, like, seek these things out ahead of time and figure out if you can come to a solution before you get married. And if not, they might be a great person, but you just might not be compatible.
So what do you think it was about this guy that made her stay around for so long? I mean, was it money? Like, do you think, like, you know what I mean?
So it could be that, like, he's not producing money like he used to. Maybe he used to be attractive, but now he's not anymore. He let himself go. I mean, you don't want to be with somebody that you used to find really attractive and they used to take care of themselves, and now they completely have no hygiene at all. Like,
oh, dude.
If your wife just stopped showering or whatever, like, I mean, how long could you put up with that? You know, she was
5
nice
days.
enough to yeah, exactly. Some people just let themselves go.
I think some of it too, though, is on the delivery, right? Like, if you're like, hey, you reek, like, or if you say, hey, you know, I haven't noticed, or I noticed you haven't showered in 5 days. Like, have you thought about it? Like, I don't know, like, come about it a different direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, especially, you know, and, you know, like you said, the more you date your partner, or know your partner, you'll know how to, like, say things or come across a little better that they would be expecting you to say instead of something that might come off offensive to them. But I'm curious. I would love to be a fly on the wall in their kitchen or whatever, in their house in general, because I can't imagine the amount of just disdain of her just staring at the ceiling the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that they weren't even in a relationship by the end. I mean, they just were living together, tolerating each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of resentment's built up. If they would have just brought it up like you said, hey, I noticed you haven't showered, or hey, I noticed that you stopped going to the gym, or you're not taking care of yourself, you know, 10 years ago, whenever it started, then it wouldn't have been a problem. You know, maybe he has some kind of depression or something like that, but you just let it build up until you snap and you can't take it anymore. I mean, there's no coming back from that. No. I mean, this relationship is over.
Yeah.
You know? And one more thing I was thinking is, like, you know, it's obviously great that he's going to be able to get a divorce, and it's probably better for both of them. They're both going to be better off. But if you're in that situation, like, okay, great, you get a divorce, but she still gets half your money. But let's say back to the asexual situation, you get married to somebody and 2 years later they come out and they say, well, I'm asexual. I've never really been into you. I don't like having sex. Well, you get a divorce and she's still going to be able to take, half of your money, even though it's a complete bait and switch. You didn't do anything wrong. Yep. It's just, she's just not attracted to anybody. Like, there's nothing you could have done about that. And she wasn't coming forward with that at the beginning. And then now you're just screwed. Like, that's a sad situation to find yourself in.
Yeah. So do you just get a prenup then? Every time now? Like,
well, I mean, you probably should do that anyways. It's funny because, like, I think every guy says, yeah, like, I'm going to get a prenup. But then when it comes down to it, like, I don't think I'm going to get a prenup, No. And it's not that I'm, like, naive, like, nothing could ever happen to our relationship and, like, oh, we would never get a divorce. Right. Like, you can't predict that. Like, shit happens. But I don't know if I want to go through that whole. I can barely make a doctor's appointment, let alone an appointment with a lawyer to hash out
and
all
how
this
much
stuff.
is that going to cost?
Yeah, exactly. Like even if it's $1,000, like I'm just like, oh, not worth it, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'll kick myself later if I do need one.
Right.
But that's probably the best way to go about it. But I've even heard that prenups aren't 100% solid. Like if you have someone that's really malicious and maybe they have a lot of money or you have a lot of money and they hire a great lawyer, they can get around those prenups too. So sometimes it's unavoidable.